lectures on cloud physics. Okay, and if you recall, then in the first lecture we talked about the types of clouds, how they are classified, all right, depending upon the height of their bases, right, and then further they are sub-classified into different categories, right, like cirrus, cirrostratus, cirrocumulus, altostratus, altocumulus, right, stratus, stratocumulus, cumulus, nimbostratus, cumulonimbus, and so many things, right? So we had discussed those things earlier. Okay. Uh, Today we shall talk about little bit in detail about the nucleation process or the growth of cloud droplets. Okay. So when we talk about the convective clouds, as we had discussed in the past, we can determine the base and top of the convective clouds depending upon the instability, right? This diagram should be familiar to you. Is this screen visible to you, all of you? Is
Yes,
my
Yes, sir.
sir.
okay? And I am also clearly audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as we had discussed earlier in the atmospheric thermodynamics part, that we can determine the presence or absence of atmospheric instability in the atmosphere by plotting the profiles of temperature and the specific humidity or mixing ratio on a T5 gram, right? Let us say this is a T5 gram. The diagram on the left side is a T5 gram, right? This is already familiar to you, right? And on the T5 gram, as you can see, that these are the moist adiabates, right? So let us say this is the surface, okay, 1000 millibar pressure level, and when the parcel of air is lifted from here, initially because it is dry, so it will follow the moist adiabate, right? It will follow the moist adiabate, which are these lines, okay? These lines. So, and similarly from the dew point temperature line, we follow according to the mixing ratio line, right? And the point where the two will meet is the level lifting condensation level. Further, if we lift them, then there is a point where the two cross each other, which is the level of free convection, and then onwards the parcel will follow the moist adiabate, and the temperature of the parcel of air is determined from the moist adiabate. Okay, and the area enclosed between the moist adiabate and the environmental temperature line is called the CAPE, the convective available potential energy, and that determines how much is the parcel buoyant, how much the parcel can go up, right? And again, after the parcel rises up, at certain point in the vertical, it will cross meet each other, and that is the level of equilibrium. Okay, equilibrium level, and that is the top of the cloud. So the cloud base is at the LCL or LFC, and the cloud top is at the EL. Okay, equilibrium temperature level. And this on the right side, you see a typical illustration of a cumulonimbus cloud, a convective cloud. Okay, and here you can also see that it is schematically shown that there are updrafts in the cloud, and again some downdrafts also originate at certain levels uh, above the base of the cloud. Okay, so this is a typical cumulonimbus cloud. Now, when the cloud is growing up, okay, when the cloud is growing up, say let us say at the lifting condensation level, okay, when the condensation starts taking place, at that time the saturation vapor pressure will determine how much will be the size of the water droplets. See, cloud water droplets start forming, okay, depending upon the saturation, okay, saturation of specific humidity, and also the presence or absence of the aerosol particles, okay, in the atmosphere. Now the question is that what should be the supersaturation? What should be the supersaturation at which the cloud droplets start forming? Okay, initially, initially the cloud droplets form like an very tiny embryo, right? Embryo, depending upon whether there is air is clean or not. Okay, if the air is clean, completely clean or pure air, then it requires very high supersaturation, very high supersaturation in order for the cloud droplets to form. Okay, but if the air is mixed with, say, some dust particles or some aerosol particles, then the condensation starts quickly because the aerosol particles act as a base or platform for the condensation to occur. Okay, so that means in a clean air, we require very high supersaturation in order to have the formation of the cloud droplets, whereas in a mixed air where there are pollutions or where there are dust particles, where there are aerosols, or even over the ocean, there are a lot of sea salts which are ejected in the atmosphere, right? So they also act as a base for the condensation of the water vapor. Okay, and there also the condensation can take place at a lower supersaturation, right? So this is how the cloud water droplets start forming in the atmosphere. Okay, we shall talk in detail more mathematically about the nucleation and growth of cloud droplets in this lecture today. Okay. Uh, See, the cloud droplets grow by two processes. Okay. Have you studied this nucleation and growth of the cloud droplets in any other courses so far? Yes or no? Am I audible and visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, has this been taught to you in any other subject, the growth of cloud droplets, or not yet? Yes or no? The nucleation process, yes or no?
No, sir. Nucleation we haven't, but I think the uplifting of cloud and all that Chinmay sir has taught.
Okay, he introduced you about a little bit of that. Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
So I see still today many are missing. Only 8 people are there so far, right? So only 7 people are there. So I don't know what happened to them. Anyway, so okay, so there are basically two processes through which the cloud droplets grow. Okay, one is called the homogeneous nucleation, and the other is called the heterogeneous nucleation. The cloud droplets grow by two processes. One is the homogeneous nucleation, and other is the heterogeneous nucleation. Okay. In the real atmosphere, generally we have the heterogeneous nucleation because homogeneous nucleation means uh, the presence of aerosols whose characteristics are similar to that of the water vapor, right? And in other words, that means in the homogeneous nucleation, we expect that the water droplets would form by itself because of this supersaturation. Okay, supersaturation. Whereas in heterogeneous nucleation, the presence of foreign particles, by foreign particles we mean the presence of the aerosols, okay, any kind of aerosol, whether salt particles or whether dust particles or whether any other types of pollutants, okay. So in that situation, as we said earlier, the droplets can form at even lesser supersaturation, right? So let's discuss in detail about the homogeneous nucleation process. All right. A formation of a pure water droplet by condensation from a supersaturated water vapor without the aid of particle in the air, that is perfectly clean air, is called the homogeneous nucleation, right? As I explained you just now, when there is a absence of any foreign particles in the air. That means when the air is purely clean, okay, you have got only the water vapor and other constituent gases which are there anyway, right? But no aerosols. Okay. In such situation, when the condensation occurs and the water droplets form, and that is called the homogeneous nucleation. Okay. Now, clouds form when air becomes supersaturated with respect to liquid water, that you know, or in some cases with respect to ice, right? That is the, high cloud, cirrus cloud type. Okay. So when we say supersaturation, supersaturation with respect to what, right? The air can be supersaturated either with respect to water, liquid water, or it can be supersaturated with respect to ice, right? Either way. So when the air is supersaturated with respect to liquid water, okay, liquid water, then the droplets that form are the water droplets, right? Whereas in case of if it is supersaturated with respect to ice, then the cloud droplets are basically frozen particles. The cloud droplet consists of frozen particles, right? Like in the very high clouds, right? If the water vapor pressure in the air is E, the supersaturation in percentage with respect to liquid water is E divided by S minus 1 times 100, right? This is the supersaturation. When E is the vapor pressure, Es is the saturation vapor pressure, right? So the supersaturation with respect to liquid water can be calculated by this formula, right? And that is E by Es minus 1 times 100, where Es is the supersaturation vapor pressure over a plane surface of liquid water and the temperature of the air. A supersaturation with respect to ice may be defined in an analogous way, in a similar way. Okay. The most common means by which the supersaturation is produced in the atmosphere is through the ascent of air parcels, right? Because when the air parcel ascends or rises up, then it will cool down, right? It will expand and it will cool down, right? And because of the cooling, because the saturation depends upon the temperature, right? Saturation depends on the temperature. At the lower temperature, the air can become saturated at a very fast, whereas at a warmer temperature, it takes a lot of water vapor to become saturated, okay, in the air. And that's the reason why in the winter season, the air becomes saturated very quickly, especially in the mornings, because the temperature is so low, the air becomes saturated in the winter season. And you see the fog, right? See the formation of the fog because the air becomes super saturated quickly due to low temperature of the air. Whereas in the summer season, maybe the amount of water vapor may be same. Okay, mixing ratio, the gram per kilogram of water vapor may be the same, but air may not be super saturated air may not be saturated because of the warmer temperature. So, as you know, that means that the saturation is proportional to the temperature, right? So, this is the most common way of supersaturation, right? Now, under these conditions, water vapor condenses onto some of the particles in the air to form a cloud of some small water droplets or ice particles. When the saturation occurs, okay, and especially when the air is clean because of the uh, rising motion and expansion and cooling of the air because of the rising motion, the supersaturation can occur. Okay, and water vapor can condense on some of the particles of the air, and then clouds can form. Okay, for homogeneous nucleation, the first stage is the chance of collision of a number of water molecules in the vapor phase to form a small embryonic water droplets that are large enough to remain intact. Okay, so the important thing here is that the nucleation takes place on a small embryonic water droplets. Okay, embryonic water droplets. That means like they are very tiny water molecules. Okay, very tiny water molecules. You know the word embryos, right? Embryos. Right? So embryonic water vapor particles help in formation of the very tiny water droplets when the air is clean. Okay, and that process by which a very tiny water droplets form because of the presence of the embryonic water droplets is called the homogeneous nucleation. Or you can say that no, the water molecules, right? Water molecules having very small size can can allow the condensation to take place on themselves, okay, on themselves rather than on any foreign particles. Okay, so this is what is called the homogeneous nucleation, right? But once the droplets have formed, the droplets can be of different sizes, right? Some can be tiny, very tiny droplets, some can be slightly larger droplets, and their radius will be very, very small. The radius of those droplets are very, very small, and it is of the order of micron, right? Micron, micron meter. Like 1 micron is 10 to the power minus 4, right? Meters. Or you can say 10 to the power minus 6 centimeter, right? 1 micron is 10 to the power minus 6 centimeter. So typically the initial size of the water droplets can be can have the radius of the order of microns. So yes, microns, right? It is denoted by generally mu. Okay, and approximately typically 1 micron meter is 10 to the power minus 4 meter, or that means this is equal to 10 to the power minus 6 centimeter. Is this board visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is the typical size. This is the typical size of the water droplets inside the cloud. Okay, inside the cloud when the homogeneous nucleation just starts taking place. Okay, and the water droplets. Okay, water droplets that forms can be having of different sizes. Okay, some can be slightly tiny, slightly bigger. Okay, different sizes. Okay, some can be 2 micrometers, some can be 4 micrometers, and so on. Right. Okay. Now, once these kind of water droplets form, then because some are larger, some are smaller, so accordingly, some of them will start descending down. Okay, descending down because of the gravity. Because of the gravity. And so when they descend down, they start colliding with the smaller water droplets which are present in the way. Right? They start colliding. Okay. So once they start colliding, because of the collision between the two water droplets of different sizes, they merge into each other and become a very big droplet. Okay, so this drop after collision, let us say, has become of this line, of this size. Okay, so this is the way the growth of the water droplets can take place from the very beginning stage, initial stage, when the embryonic particles, water molecules, allow the condensation to occur on themselves, and thereby formation of the tiny water droplets of different sizes. And then eventually, once there are many, and this kind of water droplets can be several in number. I mean, when you say number concentration of this water droplets, that means number of droplets per unit volume, number concentration per unit volume of air, right? So there are sometimes several thousand water droplets, or sometimes it can be even larger than that. Billions of water droplets can form inside a cloud, right? And therefore, these water droplets have different dimensions, different sizes, and accordingly they are affected by the gravity now differently, and so their fall speed also varies accordingly, right? So this is the way the
So
yes.
I think you have the unit, no? It's 10
Which
raised
one?
to minus 4 centimeter.
What is that?
1 micron is equal to.
This one?
Yeah, the
One
unit
micron meter. Till the power minus 4 micron meter. 1 micron is considered to the power minus 4 micrometer, which is to the power minus 6. Now उल्टा हो गया क्या?
yes, sir.
This is centimeter and this is meter, I think, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just reverse. Thank you. Okay, so this is how the water droplets will form. Okay, and this is called the homogeneous nucleation. Okay, through which the water droplets initially form in the air, right? Now let's suppose that a small embryonic water droplets of volume B and surface area A, okay, forms from pure supersaturated water vapor at constant temperature and pressure. Okay. Then during the formation of the water droplet, some amount of work is done, right? Some amount of work is done in creating the surface area of the droplet. Now, this work may be written as A times sigma, okay, where A is the surface area, okay, and sigma is the work required to create a unit area of vapor, liquid interface, called the interfacial energy between the vapor and the liquid, or the surface energy of the liquid. Okay. So the work done for formation of the water droplet is A times sigma. Okay. Where area A is the surface area and sigma is the work done. The surface energy of a liquid has the same numerical value as its surface tension. Okay, when we say surface energy, then this surface energy is nothing but the surface tension, which you have studied earlier, might have studied earlier in the BSc, right? You have studied about the surface tension, haven't you? Yes or no? Have you heard about the surface tension? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
No?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, sir.
So the surface energy, when we call the surface energy, then that means it is the surface tension basically. Okay. Now let us write del E is equal to A sigma minus N V times mu V minus mu L. Okay. Where del E is the net increase in energy of the system due to the formation of the droplet. Okay. A, as we defined earlier, is the surface area of the embryonic water droplet. V is the volume of the water droplet. And sigma is the work required to create a unit area of vapor-liquid interface. Right? And A sigma, the work done in creating the surface area of the droplet. And N, this N is the number of water molecules per unit volume of liquid. And this is called the Gibbs free energies per molecule in the liquid and vapor phases. This is also called the Gibbs free energy per molecule in the liquid and the vapor phases. Okay. I'm sorry, this one. Yeah, this is called the Gibbs free energy. Okay. Now it can be shown that this Gibbs free energy mu V minus mu L is equal to kT times log of E by ES. Okay, kT times log of E by ES. When E is the vapor pressure, okay, T is the temperature, okay, ES is the saturation vapor pressure, okay, ES is the saturation vapor pressure, right, and K is the exchange coefficient. Okay, so we can write del E is equal to A sigma minus N VKT times log of ES, log of E by ES. Okay. For a droplet of radius R, now this equation 3 becomes del E is equal to A sigma, A is the area, and considering the droplet initially to be spherical, is 4 pi R square, where R is the radius of the droplet. Okay. Sigma is the work done, minus 4 by 3 pi R cube, that is the volume of the sphere. Right? This B is 4 by 3 pi R cube, N times KT log of E by ES. Okay. Under subsaturated conditions, subsaturated means water vapor pressure is less than the saturation vapor pressure. Okay, the vapor pressure is less than the saturation vapor pressure, and that is called the subsaturated condition. Okay, now in this case, log of E by ES is negative, and delta E is always positive. Okay, delta E is always, and increases with increasing R. Okay, as shown in this diagram by blue curve. Okay, when the air is in subsaturated condition, that means when E is less than ES. Okay, in that case, the delta E, in this diagram, in the y-axis we show the delta E, and in the x-axis we show the radius. How the radius of the water droplets change or increase, okay, as a function of delta E, and which is in turn a function of the water vapor saturation vapor pressure. Okay, so under subsaturated condition, when E is less than ES, okay, in this case the delta E is always positive and increases with increasing R. Okay, as R is increasing, this delta ES is also increasing. Okay. Now, in other words, the larger the embryonic droplet that forms in a subsaturated vapor, greater the increase in the energy delta E of system. Okay, if the radius is large, then delta E will also increase. Okay, delta E will also increase because the system approaches an equilibrium state by reducing its energy. The formation of droplets is clearly not favored under subsaturated conditions, right? Right. So, in other words, when the air is subsaturated, the formation of the droplets is not favored because otherwise its radius will become infinitely large, which is not true, which is not real. Okay. So, even so, due to random collisions of water molecules, very small embryonic droplets continually form and evaporate in a subsaturated vapor, but they do not grow large enough to become cloud droplets. Okay. See, there are two things. One is the cloud droplets, another is the embryonic droplets. Okay, embryonic droplets of the water vapor because of the supersaturation or homogeneous nucleation. Okay, so even though due to random collisions of water molecules, very small embryonic droplets continually form and evaporate in a subsaturated vapor, but they do not grow large enough to become cloud droplets. Under supersaturated condition, okay, that means when E is greater than ES, okay, when E is greater than ES, right, vapor pressure is greater than this saturation, sorry. Okay, so when E is greater than ES, and so the log of E by ES is positive, and in this case, the delta E in this equation can be either positive or negative. Okay. In the first case, when log of E by ES is negative, now when E is much smaller than ES, then this delta E is always positive, right? And so this will increase. But when E by ES is greater than 1, that means E is greater than ES, supersaturated condition, then log of E by ES is positive, and so the delta E can be either negative or positive, right? Variation of delta E with R for E greater than ES is also shown in this figure by this red curve. Okay, now this blue is indicating the case when E is less than ES, and this red is indicating the case when this is the E greater than ES and this is E less than ES, right? Where it can be seen that delta E initially increases, delta E is increasing, okay, but after reaching a maximum radius equal to R, okay, then it starts decreasing, okay. So even if the radius is R is larger, but delta E or the delta E, capital delta E is decreasing. Okay, so initially it increases, and the radius of the cloud droplets also increase, but after it radius becomes a threshold value of R, then there onwards the delta E, the energy required for the formation of the droplets starts dropping down. Okay, start dropping. Okay. Hence, under supersaturated conditions, the embryonic droplets with R less than R tend to evaporate, since by so doing they decrease the delta E. Okay. However, droplets that manage to grow by chance collisions to a radius that just exceeds R will continue to grow spontaneously by condensation from the vapor phase, since this will produce a decrease in the E. Okay. So there are two things, two situations that you can think. One is that air is supersaturated, so that the embryonic droplets having radius less than r, which is the threshold value, tend to evaporate. Since by doing so, they decrease the delta E. And in another case, when the droplets are increasing in size because of the collision process between the two droplets, water droplets, then they will grow. Rather than evaporating, they will continue to grow, okay, spontaneously by condensation from water phase, vapor phase. So this will produce a decrease in the E. At R is equal to R, that is capital R is equal to R, which is threshold value. A droplet can grow or evaporate infinitesimally without any change in delta E. And we can obtain an expression for R in terms of E by setting delta D by dr of delta E is equal to 0 at R is equal to R. When R is equal to R, the threshold value of the water droplet, then we can say that D by dr of delta E is equal to 0. And hence, from the last equation number 4, we can write the threshold value of the radius of water droplet is equal to 2 by sigma times divided by 2 sigma divided by nkt log of E by Es. And this is the threshold value of the radius. Okay, this equation is also called the Kelvin's equation. Kelvin's equation. By the way, do we have a class at 12:30 by Dr. Chirma? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Chirma sir has a class at 12:30? At 1:30?
Yes, sir. He said he will take class.
1:30, yeah?
Yes, sir.
So in that case, we have to stop here for today, right? If 1:30 is a class, then we will stop here. That's all. We'll continue next class. All right? You already 1:32 now. Okay, so he may be waiting for you. Okay, so we stop the presentation. Any question till now?
No, sir.
Okay. So I see many are absent today. Sri Lakshmi joined just now. Sri Lakshmi, you have come?
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay. So how many came later on who missed the attendance?
Sir, I joined about 5 minutes late, sir.
5
So when
minutes
you
late.
started recording,
Oh, I see.
and
Okay.
today I have bad network connection, so I was going out of the meeting.
All right. So anybody else who has missed the attendance today? So nobody's there. So okay, fine. So we are stopping the class today, and we shall continue it in the next class. All right. We have reached up to Kelvin's equation. Just remember, we'll start from the Kelvin's equation next time. Okay. I stop the recording.